Yeah, thank you very much, and nice to see you, everyone here at ContainerDays, and to be able to talk at this stage again. When I was invited, if I want to present something this year, I was thinking, what kind of topic can I bring here? So for 2 years ago, I was talking about the journey towards Kubernetes at the Deutsche Bahn, and last year I made a look into the sustainability aspects of our platforms. And being someone that comes from ecological sciences, from the ecology studies, I have this interest in understanding ecosystems and understanding also the evolution of their ecosystem. So how do they evolve in history? What are patterns that we identify here? And platforms, in my conception, in my understanding, of course, this word is used in many different ways. In my concept, platforms are, in principle, foundations, are a foundation where, based on technology, people are able to come together, meet, and build things on top. So build this type of innovation on top. It's not something that you have ready-made. It's basically a place where interaction takes place. And to understand this journey, I started reflecting how was our platform evolution then at the Deutsche Bahn. And I came with 3 aspects that I find described, not necessarily chronologically, more or less, but rather different layers that are showing this evolution of our platforms and maybe also representative in other companies, but my focus will be, of course, at the Deutsche Bahn. The first was the need for speed, then came the need for quality, and lately then the need for impact. What does it mean? Need for speed, let's start by this one. Not the computer game, but the speed that we need in bringing innovation out, in speeding up our digitalization with ever stronger demands to bring more transport to the railways. We have all the issues about it. It's social, it's ecological, it's a great way to get transportation. I'm sure most of you came with train here. Who came with train? Yeah, it's quite okay. I was expecting even more, but maybe this has to do with the restrictions that we have on infrastructure. And one of the main aspects that we, of course, need to bring more capacity to the railways and to bring more quality is that we have a strong digitalization. And this was not the case in the 2010, 2014, there was recognized that we needed more speed, that we needed to get again in the front of innovation, especially for Deutsche Bahn's digital partner, the DB System. And so there was this decision in 2016 to completely move the infrastructure to the cloud. This decision was also, I find it very interesting, because there was not the decision to move to the cloud and then you will move slowly, but there was first you sell the data centers and then you say now we move to the cloud. And the reason why this was done was, it's quite a big company. There's a lot of people with habits, and so there was the risk that if we say we move to the cloud, but no one. But we did not really make a statement that this would go too slow. And the decision to sell it beforehand really marked also a date when this migration would have to be finished. And this date was, if I remember well, 2021. At this point, there would be no more data center except for some very particular applications. And why this is, at the time when I entered the Deutsche Bahn, I joined the Deutsche Bahn and the DB System in 2019. I did not really understand why. If we have data centers that are actually able to modernize, also to build platforms on it, why move to the cloud? But then I understood, of course, Deutsche Bahn is not an IT. First, it's not an IT company itself. So our business is to transport people, and the hyperscalers at the same time were bringing a lot of innovation. So if you build on top of the hyperscaler, then that was our strategy, that we became also faster and we get rid of all the overhead that we have in maintaining our own data centers. So also the interesting is, well, you know, there are a lot of jokes about Deutsche Bahn all the time. But in this case, we actually arrived ahead of time with our cloud migration. So you see ahead of the original plan. It's not always a good thing if the trend leaves before. It would be a problem. But in this case, it was quite good. And how did we do this? One important aspect, I already mentioned this on 2 years ago, self-organization and the building up of adaptive networks. So we had a transformation at the business still that said, let's move away from traditional hierarchies and let's allow teams from the bottom up to organize, to build their own business cases and start developing stuff. And let's trust that people are, so there was a very important step. You have the image of what people are in our company. Let's trust that they do good stuff. And so we evolved into a network organization, and there were a lot of teams that were forming, setting up and saying, I have a business idea, I will pitch it, and then I start working on it. Another aspect was the introduction of the DevOps model and of a DevOps culture. And you build it, you run it. It's also a very important aspect when moving to the cloud. It also changed we had, and we still have, a lot of traditional development separated from operations. And of course, we know this model is slower than, and has also some quality issues at some points. It may be useful in some cases, but effectively our favorite production model has become DevOps. And these aspects, in my point of view, were the main that contributed for fast migration to the cloud and to getting there ahead of time. Of course, when you run fast, sometimes there are also issues. So we did a lot of lift and shift, moving things that used to run on a host, just uploading it to an EC2 instance, and you are in the cloud. But you are still not benefiting from the cloud. And of course, all the skills that need to be built up, because if you are working on the cloud, on a data center, if you are working with DevOps rather than a traditional development and operations model, there are things that change in this essence. And of course, all teams were building great stuff, or at least they thought they were building great stuff. And in reality, we have, of course, we have a lot of speed. We are all got in the cloud, but a lot of work to do in regards the quality of the applications that we were developing. So this is where the point comes, the need for quality. And some keywords that we can associate with it: reliability. Do you fulfill the compliance? How about security? How robust are your applications? So how do we improve quality? This would be my answer. I already gave this answer also 2 years ago here. You run Kubernetes. Would be my technical answer. I came to the Deutsche Bahn to work on Kubernetes as a DevOps engineer. Then I was a product owner for this team. And we also wrote, one self-organized teams, we also wrote in our vision, we will make all the Deutsche Bahn run Kubernetes. We want to make it on the cloud, on trains, and whatever. And you all find Kubernetes great, right? We are in the ContainerDays conference, so who likes Kubernetes? Who is a fanboy or fangirl of Kubernetes? Yes. So, of course, here we are also fans of Kubernetes. But I also learned that the materialization of this vision was not so easy as I thought. I thought everyone would say, oh, great technology, let's all use it. And, well, not everyone is a cloud-native developer. Not everyone grew with open source. There's people that do SAP and stuff like this in companies. So you cannot really have Kubernetes everywhere. And especially you cannot go everywhere and say, hey, we did the bullet technology, the silver bullet, and we'll save all the Deutsche Bahn. But before I will come back to Kubernetes, but before I go there, let's watch what parallel developments we had. So in fact, we started addressing the developer experience itself. And this, I think, is an important aspect, the word experience. What matters in the end is how your users experience your technology, your platform, your decisions. And we see here, this was, I think, 2018 or 2019. We had our, at the time, from the CTO team, making one of the first presentation of developer experience with saying, yeah, you will have two deployments per day. Was part of this program that you get really fast in deploying stuff, because before moving to the cloud, we were having mostly these deployments where you need to agree with your operations team and settle a date. Next week, let's make a release. Not working in the modern world. But also that not only would be fast, but this developer experience platform would be able to also take care of things in the pipeline, for example, that you would otherwise need to think all yourself or you would forget. And to make it, in principle, you see it's in German, but it's fast, simple, tested, secure, compliant, and traceable, auditable. And so as it evolved, we started developing developer tools with all teams were building stuff. We put this together. We got a quite landscape of developer tools that would go to the different phases of your software development and deployment process. At some point, well, you probably know this image, I actually wanted to have an image with all our services, but I thought this will make the case. This is a CNCF tool landscape, but you could just project it to our tool landscape that evolved with all these teams self-organizing and building services and then saying, oh, this belongs to this platform. In the end, you have a kind of a jungle of services, and then comes the person, the developer that comes new in the company and says, I'm used to Jenkins. Where is Jenkins? There is no Jenkins, but there is 30 other services that you can use, or maybe there's also Jenkins. But just think about the overhead of adapting a platform when the platform itself is a big mix of different services. They need to be integrated with each other, where secrets need to be shared across so that the pipeline runs and so on. This is a challenge. And in the end, it makes it hard for the developer to get through it. But it did get through. So people started using the platform's services, at least, and built also interesting stuff. Like, this car is, I think, a good example how you put two things together with your own knowledge that maybe you come from outside and you just apply it to the platforms that were thought by some team that had a special concept, but no one really knows what was the special concept, how you are supposed to use it, but you use it somehow. You read the documentation, you talk to colleagues, and then you build stuff. It kind of works, but it's not still ideal. So at some point, there was effectively the need to set up a platform strategy. And the first version that we have of the platform strategy comes also some years ago. So actually it happened parallel to it. But the most interesting platform version came about 2 years ago. And this has become part of also the bigger strategy. So we have this strong rail strategy at the Deutsche Bahn, and one of the blocks of it is the strong IT. And within it, we have a technology strategy and platform strategy that says, we need the digital platforms as cornerstones for this successful digitalization. So this is just a slide, but the strategy, of course, has a lot of pages that some people read, not many. And but it helps to give a structure. It helps to say, okay, how are we actually understanding platforms as a company? Where are they supposed to be used? And how do we build them? And after this platform strategy came also an initiative because the platform strategy came from the DBSys still, but then it was pushed overall to the AG, to the corporation, and with this we settled also a platform governance around it. So we said the users, so our end users we are not an IT company, as I said, so as Systel we are selling these platforms and these services to developers in other subsidiaries of the Deutsche Bahn AG. And there we settled up 6 platforms, so enterprise integration, artificial intelligence, data management, Internet of Things, developer experience, and low-code, no-code. My focus today here is mostly coming from the developer experience. Of course, the examples I'm giving you is mostly the developer experience. But this to say that we try to have digital platforms, and again to the concept plus, mostly we are talking about internal development platforms, that depending on their scope, on the type of users, would direct to them. So I think they are self-explanatory, the names, but the idea is that you have platform users that are able to use these platforms as building blocks and the different platform service, putting them together and then building up the domain applications without caring for all the complexity and overheads that they have in respect to compliance, to security and so on. These aspects, and enterprise integration, which is also not, these aspects would be taken by the platforms. Then we come, of course, again to another challenge, because we have 2 cloud providers, first of all. So AWS and Azure are our 2 cloud providers, and we follow the strategy that we want to use services depending on which cloud provider is providing the best fit for certain types of services. And the platforms are built also with this idea. So our platforms are built on top of the cloud. They are platform teams. They look at a certain need for capabilities and try to fulfill this capability by looking then at the cloud providers, what they have to offer. We collaborate a lot and providing then the integrations. But here, then to assure that we are quality and that you are not making your developers again crazy to say, oh, we have an authentication method for AWS, but if you are on a platform on Azure, you will need to switch something else. These types of things need to be addressed. So aspects like making sure that you have secure networking and data transfer between the clouds, between the platforms, within the platforms, and that you don't need to care about this, because you cannot just send data to a non-encrypted file system. But if you are directly on the AWS console, you can do this very easily. So you need to make sure your accounts fulfill the standards, and you need to make sure that when you move data across platforms and so on, that they also go secure. Secrets management, a very interesting topic, because it's usually complex, but nowadays with the platforms, we have so good integrations with the cloud providers, and we are able to get them then to the end user of the platform so that you don't need to have a lot of overhead in it. The aspect of multi-tenancy. In our case, for example, we have our cloud accounts, and then within a cloud account, especially if you are a platform team, you can have a lot of tenants in it. But cloud accounts were not created in mind from the hyperscaler to have this type of topology. So you need to build this tenancy on top of it. And this is also challenging. And also even more challenging, of course, in our landscape is that every platform more or less has created their own concept of tenancy. So we need to find ways to, again, merge it so that the experience at the end user is also a pleasant experience. And the topic of identity and access management. So newly we were, through OAuth and the sharing of tokens and so on, be able to make it relatively independent on which cloud actually your services are running. You will always be able to access one another. This was not the case a few years ago. So if you were on Azure world, you would stay in Azure usually, and you would have a lot of trouble to communicate with AWS, except if maybe you were using user password schemes, which of course is not a good practice. So you want to make care of this, and so platforms were in the last year investing in cooperating. Like let's say we have, for example, data management platform is maybe more on the Azure world. You have the IT, which is more on the AWS, and they want to interact with each other, and they want to provide the user a great experience. So on the background, they took care of establishing trust relationships across the different IAMs from the cloud providers. And a final point, which I find particularly interesting, this is of course my Kubernetes bias, to unify APIs and provide the developer with a standard API that can be expandable, again, word Kubernetes, and where you can abstract logic and abstract all these integrations and so on. So in the background, actually, there's more and more Kubernetes that you put between the cloud service and developers, and yeah. Third point is the need for impact. So we have increased the quality, we started building the service, integrating and so on, but what about aspects like adoption? Or are the platforms that we develop really bringing a business value to the company? Or are they costing us more than they bring us benefit? This is usually a hard question to answer, and we have started to try to estimate the business value of platform usage. And here was a case-based estimation that was done, and we identified that these are potential savings that you achieve based on real cases in terms of reduction of overhead, mostly, as you see here, from development. So you have less development time. For example, onboarding is a very important aspect, rather that you need to learn all the network infrastructure of an enterprise environment, which every big corporation makes it otherwise. So we shorten enormously this adoption time. Ops and maintenance, making it easier, and then at the end you have the time to market. And we also noticed that the higher amount of platform service that are combined in a use case, the most benefit we saw at the end user. And then we also tried to look, and this is relatively new, how is the platform adoption rates? So we have set up, as part of the platform strategy, it also became the developer experience is a standard at the holding level, but, and so we have an adoption that we estimate between 80 and 90%. It's hard to say this because to get to direct figures. But what we wanted to understand is, yes, okay, what does developer experience means? So if you remember the picture before, we have all these services that belong to a DevOps platform. Which ones of them are being used? Is an adoption when you are using only GitLab, for example, or do you need to use something more? And so we settle up scores based on the quality or the deepness of the usage of this platform. So we have score 1, which has enormously rich, which uses Git and reports. And by using Git, we are able to check for many compliance aspects. Then we have a score 2, where people are using some type of pipeline and runners that also make checks and allow you to make CI/CD and automate stuff. Here we see still a lot of potential, so actually notice there are a lot of users of DevX, but not everyone is using them so as we actually would like them to use with a higher quality. And the score tree, where you have also testing, some kind of test automation built in your pipelines. And so by understanding this, we can again reflect and try to say how can we bring people that are in score 1 to go to score 3 progressively and really explore the potential that this platform has to make sure that it has a good return on investment at the company. Yeah, the problem is here, of course, people are, developers come from different backgrounds. And this also explains a bit why adoption is sometimes not so easy. You come from different backgrounds. I already mentioned the Jenkins anecdote. But your platforms are built with specifics. So, I don't know, we have our pipeline system is called Pipeship. And it's GitLab CI, but it's opinionated. It has its own concept and constructs. And often you come to people that say, oh no, I looked at it, but it was for me too confusing, so I built my own pipeline. In the beginning, this may even work, and maybe it works better than the pipeline that is offered at the beginning. But in the long term, then you have to maintain your own pipeline. You need to patch it. Then comes the next compliance regulation, and you need to build something in. And so we understood that we need to understand what is actually the user expecting, and how can we bring him to understand how our platform tooling is actually supposed to be used. So one of the things we set up was platform enablement teams that have an enablement offer, and we say actually we want to enable people so that they don't need us anymore as soon as possible. And so we go on platform coaching and enablement. We sit with these teams and say, look, we can look at your case and try to understand how is what are the best matches in terms of services, and maybe we tell you also some secret sauce to this platform service that make you really have fun on your development. The other aspect was starting to focus on use cases. So not being limited to the product and services, which we're doing a lot. They're saying, yeah, Pipeship, SCADA, which no one understands. But really look, what is the type of thing that you want to deploy, and having example use cases and building jump starts for it. And for example, most people will want a web application with a database. What are the best practices? How can you build this by using this platform service? And really having this focus and bringing them then also to things like the single points of contact. Here what we see is also some of the developments. On the left side, we have the developer portal that was newly launched this year based on Backstage.io. Probably most of you also already heard about it. And on the background is of course a lot of Kubernetes, but this is, let's say, a templating engine and a service catalog for allowing you for roll out stuff that most people need or could need, can be modular, and everyone can also contribute to it. And so it is one important entry point. You can have your projects there, and you can use different services, but look at them in an integrated way and benefit from the developments others did. And on the right side, it's a knowledge portal that also is used to navigate the landscape, this jungle landscape of the different services. And there, we also moved from the first version to the second, much more stronger into the uses rather than only the product views. And one very important aspect, actually, initially when I thought about this call, I said I will talk about how we started with our small hackathons in the container services, in the platform team with Kubernetes, and how we moved from team-based hackathons up to platform hackathon, developer experience platform, and later on to this Build IT hackathon. And these are great places to engage your community, because a platform, if you see it as an ecosystem, it needs a community. It needs to live. It lives from its contributions. It lives from its users, from the feedback, and so on. I already told that we had this governance, so there's also this platform circle with a holding, with the different subsidiaries of the Deutsche Bahn that come together and get to know about the news. There's also some workshops where people can interact with platform owners and their users, and this is also a very successful format. And what newly came also was to set up a new IT operating model. Because we understood, we were fast, we built great stuff with innovation, but we also did a lot of things maybe double and 3 times, and still are doing, because you have every portfolio is taking their own decisions and so on. So there is a new model that is putting more strongly the focus on defining enterprise, looking at the enterprise architecture, then working together with portfolio segments, and then establishing a control model. Main idea is you look at domains of operation. We have also platforms as foundations, and we try to avoid that on place A and B the same things, same capabilities are being developed in projects. So there's a more centralization coming on, which is, let's say, a feedback loop to this self-organization that allows you to get more consistency and to reduce the amount of applications that are also being developed and optimizing this process. So speed, quality, and impact. These were the 3 aspects that I brought, and if I could give some TLDR or takeaways, I would say the topic of speed is mostly pushed through agility and self-organization. You need to trust innovation from the bottom up. You need to trust that engineers do great stuff if they are given the needed freedom for it. The focus on the experience and the use cases rather than the products or technology itself. So try to understand what your users are doing normally, what types of things do they need, and then think which technologies match it. And maybe it's not one product, maybe it's a combination of products, and you can then think it consistently by, for example, creating your platform enablement teams that aggregate this information. And we see more and more Kubernetes is expanded by us as expanded, but it's not more visible. It happens a lot of the background. So as I said, the developer portal on the behind, you have Kubernetes clusters running. Many users don't even see them. They don't even understand Kubernetes. And in the end, it's about caring for your platforms as an ecosystem, as you would do with your garden, and invite people to them, care for the people, host them well, and make your ecosystem livable. Thank you.
Thank you, Gualter. What I'll do is I'll take the first one, which is what happened to the data center folks? Did they also move to Kubernetes? Data on Kubernetes, which is an interesting one.
All right. Well, I did not conduct any interviews or surveys, but as part, this was also why this transformation was also needed. So you needed people to reorganize into different structures. So a lot of people that were working on the data centers obviously ended up in service teams that then were related to cloud. And some of these teams, not all, started doing Kubernetes, yes.
Thank you. And I'll take this one because I find it interesting. Is Kubernetes running on the ICE?
This question comes every year. There are pilot projects, but there is no Kubernetes running on ICEs.
not yet.
As far as I know. I don't know I mean, the Deutsche Bahn is so big, but not yet, as far as I know.
Cool. Thank you very much. Again, a lot of questions, but do catch Gualter afterwards during the break. We've got a short intermission of about 8 minutes, and then I'll see you into the next talk. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.